Henry Winkler's parents called him "dumb dog" in German and locked him in his room for weeks. He failed geometry 4 times and couldn't even attend his own graduation. But the real truth was something else entirely. At 31, he discovered by accident what had been destroying him his whole life. By the 1980s, after Happy Days ended, he couldn't get hired anywhere. He made desperate calls just to survive. Then in 1982, something happened that almost ended everything. What he's done since will leave you speechless. Henry Winkler was born on October 30, 1945, in Manhattan. But the story of how he even existed started long before. His parents, Harry and Ilse, had fled Berlin in 1939. Harry told Ilse they were going on a short 6-week business trip to New York, but he had no intention of returning. He knew the Nazis were closing in, and he didn't want to scare her. That decision saved their lives. They boarded the SS Manhattan and left behind everything. Harry started a new version of his wood trading company in New York, using melted-down family jewelry hidden in chocolate boxes to fund it. Almost everyone else they knew in Germany was killed in the Holocaust. Their escape was one of the last possible before borders shut tight. They named their son Henry, not just because they liked the name. It was for Helmut, Harry's brother, who was supposed to escape with them, but stayed back just one day to wrap things up. That day cost him his life. Helmut ran to Amsterdam, went into hiding, but was caught and sent to Auschwitz. He and their mother were murdered in 1942. Henry's middle name, Franklin, was for President Roosevelt, who kept extending the family's visas, letter by letter, until they could stay for good. Henry still has those letters. Growing up, Henry lived in a conservative Jewish home in New York with his sister Beatrice. They celebrated traditions, but didn't keep kosher. Their synagogue, built by Holocaust survivors, was just a few blocks away. Summers were spent at Lake Mahopac, where Henry found peace on the water. Water skiing became his escape from the pressure of school and his father's expectations. At home, the trauma of the Holocaust lingered quietly in the background. The family was surrounded by other refugee families from Germany and Hungary, building a new life together with people who had lost everything. Harry had rebuilt his lumber business from scratch, and it became a success. He wanted Henry to take over one day, but Henry had other dreams. He wanted to act. To Harry, that felt like a slap in the face. He had risked everything, escaped the Nazis, rebuilt a company, and his son wanted to chase scripts. That disappointment built a wall between them. Every time Henry stepped toward acting, it seemed to his father like he was stepping away from their survival story. School was a nightmare. At PS 87, Henry studied every night, but when it came time to read aloud in class, the words disappeared. He'd know everything the night before and forget it all by morning. He memorized lines for plays because he couldn't read them. He couldn't even spell invincible when it came up in a school performance. He tried so hard, but his brain wouldn't cooperate. For most of his early life, he hadn't read a single full book. His classmates thought he was funny, but it was a mask for the fear. Every day he just prayed not to be called on. At home, it was worse. His parents called him dummer Hund, dumb dog. That label stuck. They yelled, grounded him, locked him in his room for weeks, convinced his bad grades were laziness. His father couldn't understand why the son of a successful businessman couldn't pass geometry. Henry's self-worth was crushed early. The few things he loved, like theater, he had to fight for. In high school, he wasn't even allowed to act, but he found ways. He memorized lines by listening, performed in secret, and built a world where he could feel capable. Acting became his survival tactic. not just his dream. In 1963, he failed geometry 4 times. He couldn't even attend his own high school graduation. His diploma came in the mail. It was humiliating. He applied to 28 colleges, desperate to find a place. Only 2 said yes. Emerson College was one. There, he still couldn't read a book, so he memorized pages in chunks and improvised the rest. His professors didn't think he had much talent, but he kept pushing. In 1970, he auditioned for Yale. He couldn't read the monologue, so he made it up on the spot. Somehow, it worked. He got in. At Yale, things didn't get easier. His classmates came from wealth, lived in comfort, and could read scripts on the fly. Henry couldn't. He memorized phonetically and worked harder than anyone just to keep up. He directed plays, tried everything, but his professors still doubted him. In 1970, he landed his first paying role, $150 a week, as the Pirate King in a touring production. He couldn't keep up with the lyrics, so he improvised. At first, people laughed for the wrong reasons. Then they started laughing for the right ones. Then came the disaster. In 1971, during a play in Washington, D.C., the director fired him on the spot. Henry forgot his lines and stood frozen on stage. The director called him unhireable, said he didn't have what it took. The whole theater world in D.C. heard. Henry sat alone in his apartment, broke, eating noodles, thinking about quitting acting forever. 2 years later, he put everything into a Broadway show. It closed after 1 performance. He lost his savings. He was left with $47 and debt. He worked for a moving company, lifting furniture for $3.25 an hour. He still kept auditioning. He even got rejected for a deodorant ad because the director said he looked too sweaty to sell antiperspirant. It was insult stacked on injury. Henry Winkler came back to New York feeling like everything had ended. After being fired from Moonchildren at Arena Stage, 3 weeks into rehearsal, and told point blank he was just a stand-in until the real actor showed up, he wasn't just humiliated, he was lost. Yale Repertory had paid him $173 a week, and now he was scrambling just to survive in Manhattan. But instead of quitting, he found a way. He started doing commercials, Rite Aid, others. Not glamorous, but it paid enough so he could act at Manhattan Theater Club for free. The cruel twist? His dyslexia made auditions hell. Cold reading scripts felt like staring at a foreign language. So he had to memorize everything, then pretend to be improvising. That mix of hustle and heartbreak kept him going just long enough. Then came The Lords of Flatbush in 1974. He played Butchie Weinstein, a kid hiding his brains behind jokes and bravado. Sylvester Stallone was Stanley, the leather jacket leader. Set in 1958 Brooklyn, the movie hit the exact nerve that America wanted. 50s nostalgia was booming. Winkler's first on-screen kiss was in that film. He was still struggling to get by, but that low-budget film became a quiet hit and helped him get noticed. In 2024, Stallone called it a story of friendship, growth, and passion. That movie quietly lit the fuse, but not everything landed. Winkler auditioned for Crazy Joe in 1973 and beat 200 actors for the role of Manny. The film had big names: Peter Boyle, Eli Wallach, Rip Torn. This could have been it. But in post-production, his scenes got cut so harshly he was barely visible. Just like that, his big break vanished. He was crushed. For a moment, he truly wondered if film would ever work out. Back in New York, he joined Off the Wall, an improv group that became his testing ground. Fast jokes, fast pivots. He sharpened everything there. Then came the moment. His agent told him it was now or never. Move to L.A. Winkler didn't want to. He didn't think he had that face. But Perry King, his Flatbush co-star, pushed him. So they left together. September 18, 1973. Winkler gave himself 30 days, 1 month. He had savings from commercials and enough hope to last him 4 weeks. Just 5 days later, he got his first TV role, The Mary Tyler Moore Show, Season 4, Episode 10. The role paid $350, but behind the scenes, it was brutal. He couldn't read the script well. Dyslexia, again. He was cast as Rhoda's date, who ends up eating alone on the balcony while everyone else parties inside. The role was small, but it was national TV, and it happened within a week of landing in LA. 2 weeks after that, everything changed. He auditioned for Happy Days. The role was Fonzie. The audition script had 4 lines. Winkler didn't just read them, he became them. He combed his hair, tossed the script, and walked out. Gary Marshall wasn't convinced at first. This is my Fonzie? But the way Winkler carried himself made him look 10 feet tall. Fonzie was supposed to be a sidekick. By episode 5, he was the star. But Dyslexia never let go. Every Monday morning at 10, during script table reads, Winkler would freeze. Words like invincible became walls he couldn't climb. He'd skip lines, mess up jokes. He was the coolest guy on TV, but inside he felt like a failure. He'd ask for scripts in advance, trying to memorize everything. Even with castmates being patient and kind, he always felt behind. There were other battles, too. ABC didn't want Fonzie in leather, said it made him look like a thug. Winkler was forced to wear pale blue windbreakers in Season 1. Gary Marshall pushed back. Eventually, ABC said Fonzie could wear leather only if he was near a motorcycle. So they wrote the motorcycle into every scene. The twist? Winkler couldn't actually ride it. He nearly crashed the first time. But once Season 2 hit, Fonzie was in leather, and ratings exploded. From 18th to first place. Winkler even wanted more depth. Fonzie's family, his loneliness. He didn't want Fonzie to be just cool. By 1980, one of his jackets was in the Smithsonian. Then came the jukebox. During a scene in 1976, the prop jammed. Winkler, frustrated, punched it. The song played. Magic. That single improvised moment turned Fonzie into a legend. Suddenly, Fonzie could fix machines with a touch. Audiences loved it. But off-screen, Winkler was dealing with imposter syndrome. His immigrant background, his learning challenges, none of that matched the swagger Fonzie carried. That punch made TV history, but Winkler still didn't feel like he belonged. By 1977, Fonzie was everywhere. $10,000 an episode. By the end, $50,000. Merchandise, dolls, posters. Kids mimicked the thumbs up and the eye. But Winkler kept repeating, Fonzie is my fantasy. Henry Winkler is the reality. He was adored worldwide, but still privately wrestling with being seen, being enough. Over 11 seasons, 255 episodes, he made over $12 million, not counting syndication. But in 2019, he admitted he'd mishandled his money. He said, I wish I knew then what I know now. Between 1977 and 1980, the Happy Days set was a pressure cooker disguised as a hit show. Henry Winkler had become a national obsession as Fonzie, and the fame didn't come quietly. ABC's top executive, Leonard Goldenson, seriously floated the idea of renaming the show to Fonzie's Happy Days. Winkler pushed back hard. He didn't want to be the reason his castmates were sidelined, but the dynamic had already shifted. Fonzie mania was in full swing, and the cracks beneath the cast's friendly smiles began to show. To ease growing tension, Gary Marshall, the show's creator, started organizing charity softball games. It wasn't just for fun, it was strategic. Keeping the cast moving and laughing helped hold things together. Ron Howard and Anson Williams even taught Winkler how to pitch right there between takes. But that didn't erase the quiet resentments. In 1978, rumors spread of a conflict between Winkler and Anson over a stolen comedic bit. While nothing was confirmed, the shift in energy during seasons 5 to 7 was hard to miss. Winkler received Emmy nominations in both 1976 and 1977, but he never embraced solo praise. He always insisted it was a team effort, even when the spotlight tried to burn him alone. In 1977, Tom Bosley, who played Mr. Cunningham, took things a step further. He reportedly confronted Winkler directly, frustrated that Fonzie was dominating the narrative of a show built on ensemble charm. Bosley wasn't just another actor. He was a seasoned Broadway performer who deeply valued balance. Details of that confrontation weren't made public, but their relationship stayed layered and real. Years later, when Bosley passed away at 83 from lung cancer, Winkler said, "He was our television father on the soundstage, but a father figure in real life." Ron Howard added that Bosley's strength of character and comic timing were central to the show's magic. Whatever tensions once existed, they didn't break the bond. Erin Moran's journey was different and darker. As Joni Cunningham, she was a fixture from 1974 through 1984, appearing in 239 episodes. But in 1982, during the later seasons, her off-screen troubles bled into production. While unconfirmed, whispers of an intoxication incident causing filming delays made the rounds. Moran was battling substance abuse, something that would later define much of her post-show life. In April 2017, she died at 56. It wasn't drugs, as early gossip claimed, but complications from stage 4 cancer. No illegal substances were found in her system. Ron Howard, on hearing the news, tweeted, "Such sad, sad news. R.I.P. Erin. I'll always choose to remember you on our show making scenes better, getting laughs and lighting up TV screens." Her struggles were a harsh reminder of what the relentless pace of TV could do to a young star. Scott Baio joined the cast in 1977 at just 16 years old. His character, Chachi, arrived in the episode My Cousin the Cheat. He brought youth, charm, and a new layer of tension. Some speculated that Winkler felt threatened by the fresh attention Baio was receiving, but publicly, their chemistry seemed genuine. Baio quickly became more than a sidekick. By 1982, he and Moran were spun off into Joni Love's Chachi, a show that Winkler himself helped produce and direct. Years later, despite polar opposite political beliefs, Winkler called Baio family. He told Andy Cohen, "He came into my life when he was 12. He is a member of our family. I completely disagree with his politics, but he truly believes it. And he is my son." Behind Winkler's cool leather jacket was a private agony few saw. In 1976, at age 31, he was diagnosed with dyslexia. By accident. His stepson was being evaluated, and that's when Winkler realized he had been living with it all along. The rage that followed was explosive. "I was so fucking angry because all the misery I'd gone through had been for nothing," he wrote later. "All the yelling, all the humiliation, all the screaming arguments, for nothing. It was genetic." Every Monday at 10 a.m., the cast would sit for table reads. Winkler dreaded them. He stumbled, skipped lines, lost his place. "My brain and I were in different zip codes," he said. The writers had to send him scripts weeks early, just so he could keep up. On the outside, he was the coolest guy in America. On the inside, he felt like a fraud. When he left Happy Days after season 10 in 1982, his involvement with Joni Love's Chachi became a full-blown disaster. The series debuted on March 23, 1982, and tanked by May 24, 1983, just 17 episodes later. Its first few weeks showed promise, thanks to a strong lead-in and weak competition. But in the second season, it collided with Magnum PI and the A-Team. Ratings collapsed. Winkler had not only backed the show as a producer, but also directed some episodes. Watching it crash and burn wasn't just a professional failure, it was personal. Moran and Baio quietly returned to Happy Days for the final season. Leaving the show didn't free Winkler from Fonzie, it trapped him. Casting directors saw only one thing. He tried to break out. He auditioned. He showed up. He got dismissed, literally. Some wouldn't even let him finish reading. They didn't see an actor, they saw a gimmick. For 8 or 9 years, he couldn't get hired. The rejection was brutal. He described the emotional damage as psychic pain that was debilitating. At one point he said, "My first thought was, I'm going to die now." He had a family, bills, and no path forward. The industry had moved on. He couldn't. Winkler tried films, but it didn't go well. Dyslexia haunted every role. He would freeze on words like invincible, unable to decode them. Cue lines were missed, jokes ruined. He needed scripts early and had to hire readers for contract reviews. The shame was unbearable. Even when his fame was at its peak, he felt embarrassed, inadequate. It was humiliating and shameful. That feeling stuck to him for years. By the mid-1980s, things got worse. To keep himself visible and to pay the bills, he started appearing on game shows. Hollywood Squares, Pyramid, anything. It was survival mode. Behind the smile, he was spiraling. Anxiety turned into panic attacks. The career that had once made him a household name now made him feel lost. He called it debilitating emotional pain. The contrast between who he was and what he had become nearly broke him. His wife, Stacy, saw the toll it was taking and pushed him toward therapy. He resisted at first, but the sessions helped him unpack years of unspoken pain. The screaming matches from childhood, the shame of being called a dumb dog by his parents, in German, no less. The discovery that his struggles had a name, and it wasn't stupidity. The therapy sessions helped him begin to breathe again. Meanwhile, tensions lingered on set during the failed spin-off. Some actors resented how it was handled. It added to the weight he was already carrying. But therapy, for Winkler, wasn't just relief. It was survival. Henry Winkler wasn't supposed to be in The Waterboy. The original actor didn't show up, and at 11:30 p.m., Adam Sandler made a desperate phone call. Winkler picked up, agreed on the spot, and walked into a role that would change his career. It was 1998, not 1991 like many say. He brought his own life into the character, especially the quiet fight he had with dyslexia. Coach Klein wasn't just some football guy. He was someone trying to find confidence again, just like Winkler had been doing since the Fonzie days. The movie made $190 million on a $20 million budget. And yet, in a 2024 interview, Winkler said he was paid so little, he joked he only got a cookie and didn't even get to keep his clothes from the set. That one late-night emergency call gave him a second chance in Hollywood. But Winkler's story wasn't just about comebacks. Behind the scenes on MacGyver, where he was an executive producer, things were tense. He fined people for even talking about ratings, thinking it distracted from the work. Some called it control. Others called it ego. Years later, in 2016, a legal fight over MacGyver profits dragged his name back into the spotlight. It wasn't petty. It was about millions tied to deals from the 80s. CBS even filed papers in 2025 to shut down the mess. It wasn't the image most people had of him. The guy who played Fonzie also knew how to fight for money behind closed doors. He tried to stretch his skills even further when he directed Memories of Me in 1988. It bombed. The $12 million movie only made around $3 to $4 million. It hurt. Crew whispered he wasn't cut out for directing. Even Roger Ebert liked it, and gave it 3.5 stars, but Hollywood didn't care. Winkler felt like he'd failed. He began questioning everything, whether he belonged behind the camera, whether he was more than just Fonzie in people's minds. That doubt never fully left until decades later. Winkler didn't disappear, though. In The Critic, he made fun of himself. He knew he'd been typecast. He laughed at it, used it. It was smart. The show never got big ratings, but it earned respect. Winkler's appearances, though small, were sharp. He wasn't trying to erase Fonzie. He was learning to live with him. That continued when he joined Arrested Development. He played Barry Zuckerkorn, a lawyer so lost it was funny. But behind the laughs, things weren't easy. His dyslexia made memorizing scripts brutal. He used audio recordings to prepare, the same trick he'd been using since Happy Days. He'd come to set early, sometimes hours ahead, just to get it right. That hard work showed. He got award nominations. Still, he didn't win an Emmy for that role. That would take another 15 years. In 2018, when he won an Emmy for Barry, he was 72. The role of Gene Cousineau gave him everything he'd been chasing: recognition, respect, and proof he could still surprise people. What most didn't know, the emotional scene about dyslexia in Season 2. He improvised it. That wasn't acting. That was real. His salary went from $75,000 to $200,000 per episode. He became the oldest first-time Emmy winner in comedy, and he finally felt free. The biggest surprise? His success didn't come from acting. It came from books. In 2003, he teamed up with Lynn Oliver to create Hank Zipser, a children's series about a kid with dyslexia. Winkler didn't even want to do it at first. He was afraid of being judged. But the series exploded. 17 books, over 2 million copies sold, and $15 million in revenue. He couldn't even read his own books out loud until he turned 65. Every book was dictated to Lynn because he couldn't spell simple words. And still, he did it. Publishers didn't believe in it. They said books about learning disabilities don't sell. Winkler proved them wrong. Then came Here's Hank, a prequel series that used a special font made for dyslexic kids. Publishers thought it was a gimmick. Winkler fought for 2 years and paid $50,000 from his own pocket to use the font. Those books showed up in schools. Kids finished them. One stat said they had 23% higher completion rates among dyslexic readers. In the BBC's Hank Zipser show, he played Mr. Rock, based on a real teacher who once told him he could succeed. He wore the same cardigan that teacher wore. While filming, he found out the teacher had dyslexia too. It broke him. Cameras caught the moment. It wasn't part of the script. By 2025, he released his 40th book, a memoir called Being Henry. It sold $1.2 million in the first week. In it, he admitted things that shocked even his fans. In the 80s and 90s, he was making only $300,000 a year. He battled depression. He admitted he thought about ending his life in 1982, saved only by his therapist. During a reunion with Ron Howard at a fan event, they cried on stage. They hadn't really spoken since 1984. Career jealousy got in the way. Howard revealed Winkler missed his wedding. That moment went viral. 15 million views in 2 days. Winkler also admitted he'd hated Fonzie for years. It felt like a prison. But now, he says it saved his life. And it wasn't just his own life he helped. With his wife Stacy, he started the Children's Action Network in 1990. By 2025, they had helped immunize over 200,000 kids. The group grew from a $50,000 project to a $3.2 million machine. But the turning point came in 2003, when John Ritter died on set. Ritter collapsed in Winkler's dressing room. He died in Winkler's arms. That moment triggered anxiety that Winkler had buried since childhood. Later, he learned they were misdiagnosed epileptic episodes. He gave $500,000 to epilepsy research in Ritter's name. That led to $5 million in new funding. It even helped change laws in California, requiring CPR training in schools. It might have saved lives.